and welcome to Crimes Through Time, where I talk about snapshots of crime history. This case takes us back to Victorian London, 1879. The body of a woman is found in the coal cellar of a lodging house. She has laid undiscovered for some time. Who is she? How did she die? And who was it that hid her in the cellar? This is the case that leaves you with more questions than answers, because despite 2 trials, no one has ever been brought to justice for this crime. So let's examine the facts in this still unsolved case and see if someone got away with murder. The rise of the lodging house in Victorian London was in response to the population explosion. Between 1801 and 1901, London grew from 1 to 6 million people. Working class could no longer afford to buy property, and landlords needed to reduce costs. Sounds like the perfect solution. But the reality of a house filled with strangers who live a transient lifestyle was a breeding ground for drama, tension and crime, including murder. 4 Euston Square in Bloomsbury, London was no different, and on the 9th of May 1879, William Stroman, the 15-year-old errand boy, made the shocking discovery of a badly decomposed body of a woman in the coal cellar. She appeared to have been there for some time and had a rope tied around her neck. He raised the alarm to the owner of the house and ran to find a police officer. Severin and Mary Bastendorf owned and ran 4 Euston Square. They lived there with their 4 children. Severin was a carpenter and an established businessman. He specialised in making cabinets from bamboo and had a staff of 10 men. They lived in a modest lifestyle, but did have a maid to help with the daily work of running the house, renting out the rooms in their 3-storey house located in a quiet terrace to keep the cost of living low. On this day, the house was empty of lodgers, but a new tenant was due to arrive, prompting William to be sent to clean out the coal cellar where the body was discovered. 2 constables attended the scene, along with a nearby doctor. The body was wrapped in oilcloth, but was in very poor condition. The doctor concluded it may have lain there undiscovered for years. More information was able to be gathered from the mortuary. The body was that of a woman somewhere between 55 and 60 years old, 5 foot, with evidence of red hair still visible on the skull. Her clothes were made of lace, and there was a silk shawl and ornamental jewellery found with her. Detective Charles Hagan was tasked with investigating this curious case. The press were fascinated and crowds of people surrounded the scene. Hagan was able to use this interest to his advantage and sent out a press release. First to come forward were William and Susan Dobbs. Their daughter Hannah had been a maid at the boarding house, and they hadn't had any contact with her in 6 months. Hannah was quickly ruled out, but when she was located, she was safe and well, although she had been in jail for petty theft. The inquest that follows was confusing and served only to muddy the water further. The evidence of the Bastendorfs highlighted the transient nature of the people staying at the house, with 20 lodgers over the past 3 years, giving a lengthy list of potential suspects, most of them anonymous and untraceable. There had been times when bones had been discovered but dismissed and not investigated further. No proper explanation was given for this. The doctor could only place the time of death at somewhere between 1 and 3 years, so piecing together a helpful timeline was almost impossible. The case began to go cold, until Hagan's excellent police work broke the case by identifying the victim. He noticed the victim was missing a significant number of teeth and suspected they would have worn dentures. He reached out to local dentists, and one remembered a woman who had casts for dentures but not returned. Unfortunately, they hadn't recorded her name. Then Edward Hacker came forward after seeing Hagan's continued press statements. He believed the body to be that of his sister. He viewed the remains, and it was confirmed. Matilda Hacker was the victim in the coal cellar. She was an eccentric character who, despite having the means to live independently, chose to live a transient lodging house lifestyle. She was loud and ostentatious, and her colourful clothes drew attention to her as she walked around London. Her brother inquired about a gold pocket watch his sister would always carry. Constables searched the pawn shops and soon located the watch, as well as many other items of Miss Hacker's. The name that had surrendered the items was surprising but not unfamiliar: Hannah Dobbs, the former maid. The case grew against Hannah Dobbs. She was the living maid when Matilda was lodging there. She was jealous, and missing jewellery had caused problems between the women. Was that enough motive for murder? It was believed the maid was the only one at the house the day Matilda abruptly left. Severin had been on the hunting trip and Mary visiting her mother. Hannah told the family that Matilda had left with no explanation, leaving just the next week's rent. At trial, Hannah protested her innocence. Mary Bastendorf testified that she viewed Matilda's empty room and she found a broken lamp and a red stain that had appeared to have been cleaned. But other than wishing she had charged Matilda for the damage, she didn't think too much of it. She also couldn't remember if she had taken the children with her when she visited her mother. If they had been left at the lodging house under Hannah's care, she wouldn't have had the opportunity to commit the crime and hide the body. Crucially, the cause of death could not be definitely proven, either suicide by hanging or strangulation. The condition of the body concealed any injuries that might have occurred during any attack. While the stain on the carpet was found to be blood, nothing linked Hannah with any certainty to the murder. Hannah Dobbs was found not guilty, although the judge did determine that there had been a murder, closing the case saying, quote, that the deceased, Matilda Hacker, was found lying dead in the coal cellar of number 4 Euston Square, and we further say that some person or persons unknown did feloniously and with malice and aforethought kill and murder the said Matilda Hacker, against the peace of our sovereign lady the Queen, her crown and dignity. End quote. This would usually be the end of the case. However, Hannah Dobbs had other ideas. She sold her story to George Purkis, an early type of tabloid journalist, and wow, did she have a story. One that she did not tell in court. The public were captivated by the scandal. Hannah had been having an affair with Severin. In fact, that was how she got the job as the maid. She then fell pregnant, and he begged her to say the baby was his brother Joseph's and to enter in a relationship with him. If she had complied, he would financially take care of her and her child. No further comment was given as to how that circumstance resolved itself. She claimed to have been out the day of Matilda Hacker's death. Severin had been at the house and had told her of the victim leaving. She later found the woman's body in the carpenter's workshop. The brothers threatened her and implied that they would frame her, as they knew about the jewellery she had previously stolen. She even suggested Severin had murdered another lodger, a man who had also left abruptly. She believed that the gold pocket watch had belonged to that man when Severin gifted it to her. The salacious nature of Hannah's story grew and grew, and finally she accused the brothers of beating a homeless boy to death in the workshop. A second murder trial began, this time with Severin in the dock. It could be proven that affair had occurred, but there was no evidence connecting him to any of the potential murders. He was found not guilty. The consequences for Severin were still severe. He was found guilty of perjury for lying to the court about sleeping with the maid. He was sentenced to 12 months in prison. Mary was pregnant with their 5th child, and their marriage didn't survive. Both their reputations destroyed. No one would lodge at 4 Euston Square again. The burden of his time in jail, lost family and reputation took a dramatic toll on Severin's mental health, and he succumbed to madness. After arrests for his erratic and unusual behaviour, he had to spend time in an asylum. He later returned to 4 Euston Square until he died of heart problems. Matilda Hacker's death remains unsolved, and Hannah Dobbs disappeared into obscurity. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you think of this case in the comments below, and I look forward to welcoming you in the next one.